Alright, we're going to go over a little bit of our calculator use just to make sure. So on our calculator, if we want to do square roots, of course we've got a square root button here, square root of 5. We hit equal. It tells us the square root of 5. Well, if we need that as a decimal, we've got to use our S to D, standard to decimal button, right here, above your delete button. And that gives us our decimal. So we can round that, or we can say it's between certain whole numbers like 2 and 3, or it's 2.2 or 2.24 using our rounding rules. Now, if we're having to do other operations with that though, what if I want to add these? I need to make sure I'm using this button at the top. So if I do the square root of 5, if I put plus here, notice it extends the square root symbol. It thinks I'm doing the square root of 5 plus something and taking the square root of everything. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to delete back off. You want to arrow over and get out from under your square root. Then do a plus and the square root of 2. And I can hit equal. It shows me again what I'm doing, and I double check it. It is the square root of 5 plus the square root of 2, and that's what I want. I hit my S to D button. I can also, of course, do this. Take the square root of 5, write it down. Take the square root of 2, write it down, and add those back together. But be careful and do not do this. If I do square root of 5 plus the square root of 2, if I look at this, I've got the square root symbol all the way across everything. And it's actually taking the square root of all this inside. And it is not going to have the right answer. Now your pi button is the shift down here at the bottom. Shift this X 10 to the X down here at the very bottom middle. It tells me pi, I hit equal. It tells me pi. If I want that in a decimal, I hit my SD button. Again, using things with pi and fractions, make sure, or anything in fractions, make sure when you hit your fraction button, you arrow down to the bottom. You don't just keep typing, because if I just type pi now, it is on the bottom of this fraction, and that is not what I want, because this is not on the bottom of the fraction. It is out here beside the fraction, which actually means 4/3 times pi. So we want to delete that back off. You want to arrow over to get back in the middle, and then do pi. Oops, hit the wrong button. Shift for pi. Okay, it's going to tell me 4/3 pi. Hit the S and D, and now I've got the correct answer. On our exponent button, we have the x squared. You've actually got x cubed right here, or we've got x to anything here. If I want to do 5 to the 4th power, I can hit 5, x to the block, type in the 4, hit equal, and it's going to give me my answer. Remember, negative exponents are fractions. So if I do 5 to the negative 4, notice it says 5 to the negative 4, I hit equal, it's going to be 1 over that 625. Now if you need that as a decimal, again, my S to D button. Notice that it put it in scientific notation. So I don't know. I'm trying to think if we can make it not do that. I don't know that you can. Remember, if you are actually squaring a whole term and it has parentheses, you must include the parentheses, because this is different than this on your calculator. Here we're going to say -5 times -5, which should be a positive 25. But here is a negative 5 squared. 5 squared is 25, so this is a negative 25. So on your calculator, if it's got parentheses, you need to put the parentheses and say -5, and then hit your square button. Will give you that positive 25. Because if you put -5 squared, it's going to tell you a negative 25, which is correct. I mean, the negative is not being squared in this case. If you want your negative to be squared, you got to put parentheses around it. Now, scientific notation. This button at the bottom of your calculator, you can use it. We can type scientific notation in here. Now, whether it's going to give us back the standard form or not, it depends on how small the number is. But if we want to say 2.3 times 10 to the 4th, we hit this button. You do not hit these buttons up here at the top. This is times 10 to some power. It's waiting for you to put the power in. So if I'm putting in 2.3 times 10 to the 4th power, I'm going to just put 4 now and hit equal, and it does give you back that this is 23,000. So again, I put 2.3, I hit this button at the bottom, then I just put my exponent in. Hit equal, and it will most of the time give you the standard form. Now, what if it was a negative exponent? 2.3 times 10 to the minus 4. 2.3, I hit this button again. I'm going to put my minus 4 in, hit equal. Gives me a fraction, which is what that means. Hit the SD. Okay, I did not get this in any kind of standard form. So what if I was needing it in standard form? I'm going to have to go back to my scientific notation rules, count back from here, and you can, I mean, just if you're not sure, you could just try something. We're going to see if this is correct. I moved it back. This is probably not correct because I don't think I've got enough zeros, but let's test it and see if we're right. So let's type this in. 0.0023, hit equal, hit S to D, and it says 2.3 times 10 to the negative 3, which is wrong because I wanted a negative 4. So I've got to change this, and you can go back and forth with you, so you can use your calculator to try to figure out if you're right or not. I should have had 3 zeros in there. 0.00023, hit equal, gives me that fraction, hit S to D, and it gives me the scientific notation. So I can use my calculator to help me. It may not always do the conversion for me though. If I've got a number, we'll say sometimes we got, let's put in 145,000. 145,000 and hit equal. Now, how do I put it in scientific notation? I really can't, but I can use this engineering button, which might put it in scientific notation. Now, it did not this time, because scientific notation says I have to have the decimal between the 1 and the 4. I can't just add it there and keep the exponent. So, my calculator gave me 145 times 10 to the 3rd. I need the decimal here. Okay, I need 2 more places this way, so this should have been times 10 to the 5th. Now I can double check that in my calculator by entering it that way in scientific notation, using the button down here again with the exponent of 5, hitting equal. And yes, that was the number I started with, 145,000. So on my calculator, it may give me this. This is an engineering notation, not scientific notation. Scientific notation says I have to have one number, and it can't be 0, and then my decimal. I cannot have 3 numbers like this, but this is an engineering notation. So your calculator will help you see if you got some things right. It won't. You can enter it using this button, but you may not can get the scientific notation every time.